Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. It's Grace, and the video that I'm going to be doing today is going to be my May wrap-up for the month of May 2021. So this was a little bit of a lighter reading month for me. I only finished 4 books and I got about 65% of the way through another one. But we're going to go through everything that I read, and I'm going to get some stats as well. So let's just jump right into it. First of all, in terms of number of pages, everything together, including the book that I partly finished, was about 2,500, which is a little bit less than I would generally hope for in a month. But, you know, that's okay. Everyone reads at their own pace. That's fine. So it is about 2,500 pages. I'll put the actual number up on the screen. And then in terms of ratings, in terms of enjoyment, it was a good reading month. So in the order that I read the books, I had a 4.5 star, a 5 star, a 3.5 star, and another 4.5 star. And then, of course, the book that I'm partway through, I don't have a rating for yet, but we will get to that. The first book that I read in the month of May was Alatsue by Darcy Littlebadger. I have an entire dedicated review for this that I will attempt to link in the cards, and this got a 4.5 stars from me. I really enjoyed it. Essentially, this is a YA middle grade story about Alatsue, the title character, whose family basically has the ability to communicate with spirits, and they pass this down through their female line. So Alatsue has this ability as well. And when her cousin is mysteriously killed in an accident, essentially she has reason to believe that it wasn't actually an accident. And so she sets her mind to going to find out the mystery behind her cousin's death. And she runs into a town that doesn't really want any prying eyes, is sort of trying to hide something. And her friend are just trying to solve the mystery in this book. It had a lot of indigenous culture in here. It had a lot of really fun friendships and a really fun mystery. I really liked Ellie as a character. So this was just a really good time. And again, it got 4.5 stars. It does read a little bit young, but if you like YA, I would highly recommend. The second book that I read in May was The Shadow Rising by Robert Jordan, which is the 4th book in the Wheel of Time. And if you haven't seen on my channel, I have done a 2-part spoiler talk for this book. I really enjoyed it. It is the 4th in the series. I gave it 5 stars, but seeing as it is the 4th in the series, that was the reason why I did spoiler talks, because I don't really know how to talk about this book spoiler-free. So if you have read it, you can go check those out. But if you haven't, I honestly don't really know how to talk about it, other than the fact that I really enjoyed continuing on with a lot of these characters' storylines. I did really enjoy it. It's my favorite Wheel of Time book so far. It is a chonker, so it does take me quite a while to read these books, which isn't a bad thing. It's just that they're big, so it does take me a while. That contributed a little bit maybe to my lower number of books, but I don't regret it. So the third book that I read in May was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and I gave this a 3.5 at the time that I finished it, but the more that I sit with it, the more that I think it's really kind of like a 3, and I might change that on Goodreads. I mean, it doesn't matter that much, but unfortunately, this just didn't fully work for me. So essentially, the setup for this novel is that we follow a woman named Nora who has come to the decision that it's time to end her life. And so the start of this book is very bleak. That's something that I think people should know going in, because that is the subject matter that we're dealing with here, is definitely a trigger warning for suicide and suicide ideation. Which I didn't know about. Luckily, it didn't affect me, but I really didn't know what the tone was going to be, and it is a very jarringly bleak tone at the start of this book. But yeah, we follow Nora, who has decided to commit suicide, and she then finds herself in the Midnight Library, which basically is a place between life and death where every book in the library is a life, where it could have been your life had you made slightly different decisions. And so I thought that it was an extremely cool concept. I just thought that it was not executed in a way that I loved. Like I thought that the whole thing was a little bit predictable. It almost read more like a therapy session, like masquerading as a fiction book, which is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I don't know that like this was as much of a narrative story going its own way as it was like very predictable from the beginning what the outcome of her being in this library was going to be and looking at all of her other lives. So it was okay. Like I liked my time with it. I just didn't love it, and it didn't really like leave as much of an impact on me as I was maybe hoping that it would based on the concept. So yeah, I don't know if I can explain it any better than that. So that is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. That was the third book that I read this month. This is where we got slightly off track from my TBR, because I did put this book on my TBR, but I put it at the very end of my TBR thinking that there were other books that I was going to get to first. But in the middle of the month, I kind of hit a little bit of a reading slump, and I just looked at my shelf and I was like, what is something that I am really excited to get to? And that was Malice by John Gwynne, because I have wanted to start The Faithful and the Fallen ever since I've heard more and more people on BookTube talking about it. It really sounded like something that I would enjoy. So I just went right ahead and picked this up. And I'm so happy that I did. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I was gonna give it 5 stars, but I just thought, like, I loved it, but there were some things that bothered me a little bit at the beginning, and it just wasn't quite enough to, like, be a perfect book for my enjoyment level, I guess. Like, some of the dialogue at the start I thought was a little bit clunky, and I don't know if I just got used to it or if I was watching, like, the growth of John Gwynne's writing in real time throughout the book, but like suddenly after like maybe 150 pages I didn't have a problem with it anymore, and I just started like immersing myself a lot more and not getting caught up on any of the prose type things, and after that it started reading a lot faster for me. So that's kind of what knocked it off of 5 stars, but let's talk about what the book is actually about, because this is the type of like epic fantasy story that I really love, because essentially we're following multiple points of view throughout this continent called the Banished Lands, and they're different people who are involved in different kingdoms in different parts of this continent. Like we get, like I said, multiple points of view, but they are in different places geographically. So we learn a little bit about the different kingdoms on this continent, and you also learn a little bit about the history of this continent, which has a god-level conflict, and that type of thing is always really interesting to me. So we do get a little bit of the history of that, where you have the creator, and then you have an evil god as well. So essentially, in the past, everything on this continent lived in harmony, including humans and giants. And then there were a lot of wars, and the gods were in conflict, and there was sort of like a scourging of the earth, like a catastrophic level event. And then the evil god was confined somewhere, and the creator essentially has like left, supposedly. So now men and giants live at odds with one another, and it's been this way for centuries, but we have this new conflict brewing where there are some signs of like a new god war coming. And there's supposed to be like a prophesized hero who is going to stand up and be like a representative, I guess, for the creator and stand up against evil. And so that is like the prophecy that we're dealing with in this book, and you don't really know who it's going to be. So you're following that as it develops, but you're also just following human level conflicts and political conflicts between kingdoms. And so I really enjoyed this. And I am going to have a review coming out for this as well, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but I loved this. And so I'm so happy that I started it. I've ordered the other 3 books because I just can't see not wanting to continue once I read the second one. And so I'm really excited. I've said the word excited like how many times? But it's true. I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to continuing on with this. And so that was the 4th book that I read in the month of May. The 5th and final book that I didn't finish but that I have to talk about is Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. And I have mixed feelings about this book right now because I don't want to give the wrong impression that I wasn't liking this, because I am enjoying it. And I made it to page 238. And the only reason that I didn't finish this and that I haven't picked it back up again is because of the Olympics readathon, and I wanted to start fresh onto my June TBR. And I think that a classic is the type of book where I can put it down for a month because it moves slowly enough and it's the type of narrative story that I'm enjoying, but I'm not necessarily itching to get back to it and finish it right now. So this is a pretty long book. If I'm not mistaken, this is the longest of Jane Austen's novels, and I really enjoy Jane Austen, and so I was really looking forward to this, and I was enjoying it, but I do feel like it's too long. Like, this inadvertently, I think, put me into a bit of a reading slump in the middle of the month, and after I finished The Midnight Library, I had picked this up, but I could honestly only push through like 20 pages of this per day, and that just like made me discouraged, because usually I can read a lot more than that, and it's not that I'm pressuring myself to do it, but if I'm like devouring a book, I can read a lot more than that. So I just thought I'll continue to read this slowly while I pick something else up. But of course I got very caught up in Malice and I stopped reading this. So it kind of just got put on the back burner. I do still feel like it's too long though. Like, there was a part in the middle here where, well, maybe not in the middle, maybe at around the 30% mark, it kind of lost me, because like I wanted to get on with what was going to happen towards the climax of this story without having to push through like all of the characters and the very like old-timey type of interactions between characters where like, oh, they all sit around and talk after dinner, and like your cousin says this and your aunt says this, and like it's just a very, like, I like Jane Austen, I do, but it is just very much that type of thing, and when you compare it to Malice, it's just not as exciting. What can I say? So obviously I don't have a rating for this because I'm not finished with it, but it is something that I'm just taking a break from, and I fully intend to finish it at the beginning of July. And then like it's starting to pick back up, to be honest with you. So I think that the ending will go much smoother than the middle did. And so I am still excited about it, and I'm enjoying it. And one of my goals is to read all of Jane Austen's novels. So, you know, we're well on our way, and I'm happy about it. Okay, so to wrap up the wrap-up, we have, I'm so gonna drop these. Okay, we had my 5 reads from the month of May. We had a 4.5, a 5-star, a 3 or 3.5, a 4.5, and an unfinished. I won't say DNF because that's really not what it was. It's temporary. So, in terms of enjoyment, this was a great reading month. So that's all I have to talk about today. Please let me know what you think if you've read any of these books. Again, I am going to have a dedicated review for Malice coming, so I'm not sure when that will be up, but be on the lookout for that if you watch this video. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Click like if you liked it, click subscribe if you would like to see more from me, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye!